Welcome to the Christian Author Show. From fiction to enlightenment, we offer you all forms of faith-inspired books. So sit back and relax. Here's your host, Danielle Hampson.
Hello and welcome back to the Christian Author Show. This is your host, Don McCauley, sitting in for Danielle Hampson. Today we're welcoming to the program authors Tim and Debbie Bishop, and they are the authors of Two Are Better, Midlife, Newlyweds, Bicycle, Coast to Coast. How you guys doing?
We're doing very well, thanks. Good.
Well, tell us a little bit about yourself, if you would, please.
Well, I'm 55 years old, and I'm an author and consultant for small businesses. I also volunteer as a Hope Coach for an organization called thehopeline.com. Debbie and I are both Hope Coaches, and this is a ministry that reaches youth in crisis.
Well, tell us about the book.
Okay, our book is Two Are Better, Midlife, Newlyweds, Bicycle, Coast to Coast, and it's the true story of Debbie and I coming together in marriage at age 52. We had never been married before, and right after we got married, we bicycled across the country on a self-supported tour for our honeymoon. Our memoir deals with issues surrounding midlife marriage, faith, and adventure, and it really would appeal to people in midlife who have some unfulfilled longings and desires. We like to think of our book as more than just a travelogue because of the deeper truths in it. We've had many reviewers tell us that it's really inspirational in nature.
Now, who did you write this book for specifically?
We wrote this book as a testimony for what God's done in our lives, and the book really appeals to people with unfulfilled dreams and desires and people who are bogged down in everyday life. And we think our book offers hope. And it's also written in a non-judgmental and non-preachy way.
Would you say there's any type of central message or perhaps underlying theme that runs throughout the book?
I'd say there are several, but forefront, I would say, would be not to give up on your dreams. It's really never too late. I mean, Debbie and I getting married at age 52 is an indication of that. And there's always hope. When you rest in the hollow of God's hand, and you allow Him to shape your dreams and desires, you can rest assured that He's faithful to accomplish those things in you.
So, in your opinion, what's the single most important idea you're sharing in this book that's really going to add value to the reader's life?
We hope that readers are going to be inspired to move forward in their life. Our book explores the change that we underwent just by marrying for the first time at 52. And we learned that one can't move forward without willingness to change and take risks. And if readers get stuck in their life, this book will prod them on to more adventurous living.
Now, if you could compare this book with any book out there we might already be familiar with, which book would it be and why?
I think that Hiking Through by Paul Stutzman, he went through some significant life changes. He lost his wife to cancer, and then he left his business career behind. And his book chronicles another midlife adventure, hiking the Appalachian Trail. And in both books, midlife really becomes a time of testing and change and spiritual growth. Our midlife changes were a bit in reverse. Two Are Better the promises and the joy of a new beginning turns midlife crisis upside down. And our book celebrates God's faithfulness to His promises.
So how did each of you come to faith?
Well, I had a brush with faith in my teenage years, but my commitment didn't really have much staying power. I pulled away by experimenting with drugs and alcohol, and then after that I became addicted. And I also suffered from body image issues and had anorexia and bulimia in my teenage years. So I struggled a lot with bulimia for years up until my late 20s. And finally it got so bad that I asked God to deliver me from the bulimia, and He did. And that really encouraged me, and I had a pretty amazing deliverance from that and from my abortions. So I eventually asked Jesus into my life at age 31 when it was 1989, and it was only then that I came to really know the Lord intimately. And He has guided me toward wholeness ever since, beginning with the deliverance from the alcohol 2 months after I committed to Jesus. And I'm just so grateful that what He's done in my life and what He continues to do.
I became a Christian at the age of 8. An evangelist visited my hometown church, and then when I responded to his invitation to accept Christ, Little did I know that my father would pass away 3 months later. And that timing of my conversion has always been a constant reminder to me of God's provision in my life. His grace and love and mercy drew me in before I even needed it. I guess we all need it, but boy, when the crisis hit, I really needed it. So when my earthly father passed away, I had a heavenly father, and he'd already sent a perfect role model for me, his son Jesus, who died to atone for my sins.
So would you undertake a trip like this again?
I absolutely would undertake a trip like this again. The slower pace of bicycle travel offers a great opportunity to absorb the beauty of one's surroundings. It engages all 5 senses. I like the personal challenge of a long-distance tour. It's really a unique classroom to learn more about oneself and, of course, one's travel partner.
I would say that I would do it again. It was life-changing, and it's something that we'll relish for the rest of our lives.
How did you see the Lord work surrounding your bike trip and the writing of this book?
Well, really, the amount of work that went into organizing a wedding and a bicycle trip within a compressed time frame of 10 weeks, and the relative ease with which we accomplished that, those were really strong indicators that God's hand was in our adventure.
And the weather was awesome. The lack of travel issues that we had on the road, we had no breakdowns, no rain, only for about 15 minutes. And then also, after years of single living, God brought us into this amazing adventure together. And just the energy of all of that just resulted in us going on this adventure and then also writing the book. And with To Our Better, God brought the blessing actually from a health scare. About 6 months after we got back from the bike trip, Tim was incapacitated with a blood clot in his leg, and he was stuck on a love seat for weeks, and he just sat there looking at the bike photos that we had in the digital picture frame in the living room, and he just started writing, and the rest is history.
So what was the most difficult part of this experience?
At the beginning of the trip, we were not in very good biking shape, so we really had been planning the wedding and really trying to get everything together, so we just were not in the greatest shape. And I had to get back to school. I taught school, and I had to return by, I think it was August 28th. So I was under a lot of pressure for time, and also the physical struggles when we first started out were very difficult.
The saddle sores really threatened to slow our progress and prevent us from completing the journey. We also had some concerns about navigating through higher crime areas.
So how was your faith stretched on this journey?
Our trip presented risks that we hadn't really faced before. We'd be exposed to conditions that we couldn't control, like heat, bad weather, nasty dogs, vandals, or worse. We needed to place those fears in God's hands. And we discovered that He'd already really equipped us for what we needed to do through our prior life experiences and with one another for most of what we would face. But there were times when we exhausted our resources and capabilities. He was there in those times to provide what we needed when we needed it. Several good Samaritans touched down at crucial times during our journey. We also came into our adventure with our own spiritual disciplines that we had developed for years as singles, and weaving that spirituality and our history with the Lord together as a couple provided a stimulus for us to grow further spiritually.
So what has God taught you about married life and yourselves that you didn't know before this bicycling honeymoon?
Well, neither of us had ever been married before. All of a sudden, there we were, together 24/7. We were being treated to a heaping helping of joy since we had a permanent travel partner through life at this point. But we also were together alone in our conflict, with no easy escape to the office, the mall, or the gym. So we had to reconcile in the moment, and we found that immersion was great modeling for how to face conflict, but it wasn't for the faint of heart.
And I learned to persevere and to really finish what I started. I learned that I'm more capable than I give myself credit for. And it was an awesome blessing also to be and have a committed spouse.
So in your opinion, who should buy this book?
I think most people can relate to bicycling and relationship issues, so our book does have broad appeal. But we think that people in midlife who have unfulfilled dreams or longings, those people who are just sort of entrenched in everyday living, I think those people are really going to benefit from our book.
Well, time is getting very short, so the most important question, where can we buy this book?
Two Are Better, Midlife Newlyweds Bicycle Coast to Coast is available at our website, www.openroadpress.com, and at other online stores. It's also available through just about any bricks-and-mortar bookstore. Just ask for Two Are Better by Tim and Debbie Bishop.
This has been just great. Our guests today have been Tim and Debbie Bishop, and they are the authors of Two Are Better, Midlife Newlyweds Bicycle Coast to Coast.
Thank you for listening, and tune in next time for another great book on The Christian Authors Show. To find out more about the show, visit thechristianauthorsshow.com.